Welcome to the Fish North Georgia podcast, where we talk everything fishing here in North Georgia.
Make a cast over that brush pile and bring wolf packs of spotted bass up.
Georgia is blessed with so many of these electric-only lakes.
No, I didn't say that, Danny. Don't be
so,
speculating now.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Fish North Georgia podcast. Tonight we've got teenage phenom and Lake Chatuge guide Caz Anderson in the house. Now I'm going to tell you right now, this kid's knowledge is off the charts. You're going to be watching him for years to come, so you definitely want to hang around for this. Now this episode is brought to you by Jimbo's Weekly Fishing Reports. Now imagine this, guys. If you're planning a trip to Lake Lanier and you haven't been there in a long time, you've got to know, where do I get the information out there? What am I going to do? I don't want to waste a lot of time when I get out on the water. Well, there's one place that you can go and get all of this, and that's at Jimbo's Weekly Video Fishing Reports. Now, every Thursday, guys, he puts out up-to-date content, and this is based upon his own experiences throughout that week, and it includes specific baits he's using to put fish in the boat.
And one of the baits that I wanted to talk to you about really quick is this Spro rock crawler. This thing has really been productive over the last few days.
You know, Jimbo shares his techniques and his patterns, related to Lake Lanier spotted bass. I've been on the boat with him. There's a lot of information that he likes to give out, and I know he gives it out in these videos. Also included in every single one of these reports is a map of locations where the fish have been.
Those irregular features along the ditch are the places that you want to begin looking for your bait and fish in order to find a spoon bite.
And the structure that they're relating to. So when you get out on the water, you're not wasting a lot of time searching for structure here and structure there. You know exactly what you've got to go do. You know exactly where to go. If you want to be successful, you've got to have the information. And Jimbo's Weekly Video Reports is a must-have. He offers monthly and annual plans. Go sign up at jimboonlanier.com. All right, guys, let's get into this podcast with Caz Anderson. Okay, guys, we are back in this episode of the Fish North Georgia podcast. I have got a special treat for you guys. I've actually been looking forward to doing this one for a couple of months, and I'm going to tell you why. I want everybody that's over the age of 35 or 40, my age, I'm 48, just kind of think back of what you were doing at 17 years old. Okay, I can tell you right now, at 17 years old, back in Cumming, Georgia, back in the late 80s, I was working at Ingles as a bag boy. And I had my little girlfriend, and on Friday nights we'd stick some Van Halen cassette in the radio, roll the windows down, and we'd go drive around. And that was life for a 17-year-old back in the late 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, this cat that's sitting here with me, it's a little bit different. Let me introduce you to Caz Anderson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you, Dan?
I'm doing good. Let me give you just a couple of things on Caz. All right, so he's 17 years old. He's been fishing tournaments for about 5 years now. He's doing a little professional, kind of.
I don't know. I call it.
You call it professional. You also own a guide service at 17 years old. So that right there is impressive to me, right there. Just, like that. Plus, you're a public speaker. You do a little bit of everything, and you can catch fish.
I try.
You try? So we've got this little country bumpkin from North Carolina.
That's right.
Down here. So
Yankee.
Yeah, you are a Yankee. You cross that line. So Hayesville, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what school do you go to?
I go to Hayesville High School.
Hayesville High School.
I went there my entire life. Second semester, senior year. About to head to college.
Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go to Western Carolina University in Cullowhee, North Carolina.
And are we going to go there fishing?
We are going to fish. We're going to do a little bit of college fishing. I'm not going to focus head over heels in college fishing. Obviously, education is most important. But I am going.
Did your mom make you say that?
No. I agree with them. Believe me, I would fish for the rest of my life if I had the chance. But I know an education's important. It's something that I've always valued. It's something that, it's been instilled in me to value. Believe me, I would much rather fish and, do all that stuff, but I know what's important, and it's going to enable me to fish more if I have a good education in the long run. But going back to college fishing, I will college fish some tournaments, but I'm going to focus on fishing like the Bassmaster Opens as an angler. My ultimate goal is to go be a professional angler. Yeah. So in the long run, that's how you get there.
Absolutely. Okay, well, before we get into all your superstardom, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Now, you're only 17, and I kind of joked with you before we started recording. There's not a lot of history there, but what history you got is really condensed. So basically, how about the start of your fishing? What led you to start fishing?
Okay, so I got to give credit to my dad. He introduced me to fishing whenever I could walk, pretty much. There's baby pictures of me holding a fishing pole. Right. And I did not care much about it. Whenever I first started, I was, 3 or 4 years old whenever I first started going, and I could care less if we went fishing or not. We'd go to the ponds and, we'd catch whatever bit. And, I always enjoyed it, but I never imagined, tournament fishing.
Right.
I remember whenever we first started, my dad fished in the local bass club, the Hiwassee River Bass Club. It's still going on. And we started fishing some club tournaments, and we had a youth division. There was 2 other kids, me and 2 other kids. Man, I took that stuff serious.
Now, how old are we about this?
We were about 8 years old.
Okay, so 8-year-old serious bass fishing.
Oh, I was fired up. Okay. Whenever it come tournament morning, I had rigged up all my zip codes and started going,
I love it.
Learned how to throw a bait caster. About that time, we started evolving. And my dad says I've finished YouTube, watching all these videos and stuff. Yeah. But I had the help of a lot of those guys in that bass club, some older knowledge, And fishing's not, fishing is in the future, and I'm, obviously growing up in this day and age, I'm exposed to more of the newer techniques and stuff like that, but still I have some of that old knowledge that a lot of those guys have shared with me, and that stuff tends to pay off more than the new stuff every now and again. But anyways, I would fish those tournaments and ended up taking home the Angler of the Year in the youth division that first year,
So you were 1 out of 3. You were the best out of 3.
Right there. Best out of 3. It was tight race, and we were chomping at the bit to win that thing. But they made us a trophy and everything like
cool.
that.
Yeah.
And now I've still got that trophy. It's the first one on my mantle. And
don't ever let that one go.
Absolutely not. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's cool.
And started off. I still fished in that club. Fished out of the back of the boat. My dad had a older skeeter boat, and he was ate up with it too. And loved it. And we were learning, we didn't know a whole lot about it at all, but we were learning and we wanted to learn. And I started branching out. I remember one day reading the Bassmaster magazine, looked in there and seen the first high school angler. This is a long time ago. There was 20 boats at a high school tournament. That was a big deal, whenever it first started. And I remember sitting there, I was like, man, Dad, how do I get into one of these? And I was always so eager to get into a high school tournament and compete with these guys. And that was just a few years later that I had got the opportunity. I was in the 6th grade at this time.
Mm-hmm. You were young.
I was young.
You were young.
I was in the 6th grade, and I used to shoot bows. And I go to bow shoots, target shoots, 3D archery shoots. And I met my best friend, Luke Barrett. He actually goes to Western Carolina, where I said I was going to go to college. I am going to do some college fishing with him. But me and him are best friends. Okay. Still avid fishing partners, was up until he graduated. Still fish tournaments together all the time. And that was where I first met him. I shot the 3D shoot with him that day, and he was ate up with fishing too. But, we were on different levels. He had never tournament fished before, where I had. I'd done some little tournaments and stuff like that in the youth division.
I gotta stop here. It's funny listening to a 6th grader talk about his experience over another kid that's about this. I guess he was a year older than you.
He was 2 years older.
2 years older than you, but you're the 6th grader and you got the experience.
On tournament fishing, I did at that time, right. But we were still, we learned together.
Right.
And I'll get into that later on. But I remember we got the opportunity. A guy started he started a little high school club called the WNC High School Anglers, Western North Carolina High School Anglers. Perry Graves is his name. He was the tournament director, and whenever that first started, his goal was to get kids into fishing around our area. Mm-hmm. There was no opportunities for younger kids to go and compete against other younger anglers. And he saw, he was in cahoots with some people at Bass and seen that this was the future, obviously, and he was very, very future oriented. Right. He wanted the people to get kids involved in fishing, take kids fishing, because, it is the future of the sport. Younger kids, that's the future. And if we can get these kids to start fishing and start doing things that are productive and get ate up with fishing, man, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And we started to fish those tournaments. Well, I remember whenever my dad told me, "Hey, I signed you up for this high school tournament." on Lake Chatuge, my home lake, and it was in April. And I had no clue, man, what I was going to do. And,
are we still sixth grade here?
We're still in sixth grade.
Okay.
This is the same. This all transpired within a month. When I met Luke and whenever we were going to fish our tournament.
All right.
Well, I remember when I first found out that me and Luke were going to fish together. Our dads were friends, so they were putting us in this together, Mm-hmm. Whenever I first found out that I was going to fish it with Luke, I got his phone number, on my little track phone, and I'd call him every day up toward that. You ready, man? Are you fired up for this? What you got tied on? This is
Josh and I still do that today.
Oh yeah, this is 3 weeks before the tournament. What you got tied? What you got rigged up, man?
Right.
I remember the morning of that tournament. We were antsy, and it was, just raining a storm. We got to the first spot and going down through there. I remember the bait. I was throwing a Rapala DT6. We started winding that thing around. I caught a 3.5 pound spot. Went over there to the other point right beside it. I caught a 4 pound largemouth. Luke, and me and him still laugh about this. He was throwing a floating jerkbait, a Yozuri floating jerkbait, orange and black in that gin clear water.
Okay.
On 8 pound monofilament on a spinning rod, straight monofilament.
So not the right thing to be throwing and not what you should be doing.
Well, this fish begged to differ.
Oh, okay, all right.
And we don't do that anymore. We have our advanced techniques,
yeah.
but we still, we think maybe we ought to be throwing that floating jerkbait every now and again. But we're on this point, and I just put that 4 pound largemouth on a live well. High school tournament. My dad's sitting there, and me, the little old thing, I can't even lift the trolling motor up and down.
Right, yeah.
And about that time, Luke goes, "Oh gosh, I've got a biggin." And I look out there and see his line come to the top, and I just see the side of this fish, and I said, "Dad, he's got a monster," in my little country accent,
Right.
And he gets up there, and Luke goes, "He's going under the boat." And Luke's never fished a tournament in his life. And Dad said, "Well, give him some dragon." Luke's peeling dragon. That fish, I kid you not, come up and broke on the other side of the boat.
Oh, so you didn't get it in?
Oh, we did.
Okay.
Completely under. He come up and jumped on the other side of the boat. We finally got that fish in. Luke's first bass in a tournament he'd ever caught in his life. First tournament on a floating jerkbait, weighed 6.97 pounds.
Oh, really?
His first one ever. I caught one more keeper that day, and we ended up weighing 4 fish for 16 pounds and won that tournament. And that kick-started it right there for me and him.
I imagine.
We just started, and I remember me waddling up to the scales, barely pulling that bag, and Luke was allergic to fish.
Okay, hold on a second. So your fishing partner to this day is allergic to fish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little different now.
Yeah, he couldn't touch them or anything. He had to wear wool gloves and all kinds of stuff.
Does he still do that to this day?
I think he's gotten over that allergy more and
Okay.
more. He can't eat them or nothing like that, but he can touch them now.
Okay.
But we did find a solution. It was called Gloves in a Bottle. If Gloves in a Bottle watches this, thank you so much for letting my partner touch fish all these years.
Gloves in a bottle.
Gloves in a Bottle is the
Okay.
company, and it was a lotion that sealed the pores in his hands. Anyways, we got up there, and I was waddling up to the scales, with my bag of fish. And Perry, we didn't know each other that good at the time. And I'm just sitting there, He said, "You got anything to weigh in, little man?" And I said, me being a little smart aleck, said, "As a matter of fact, I do."
Okay.
Got up there and started pulling them fish out of the bag, man, and it was just awesome. Everybody was oohing and awing, and I was just eating it up.
Right.
We took those pictures with those fish and called everybody we knew after the tournament. And then we fished high school tournaments all the way up until he graduated. We've been to a national championship, several state championships, and we've just been very blessed in our success. And we got to where we knew each other's moves before we were going to make them. Mm-hmm. And it was just that chemistry of me and him fishing together, and we learned together at the same pace. And I taught him things, he taught me things along the way. And that was what was so great about me and him fishing together.
Now, you said you won Angler of the Year. I guess that's in the state of North Carolina?
In Georgia.
In Georgia, okay,
Yes,
because it was on Chatuge.
Yes,
Okay.
I live on Chatuge, and we got it coordinated. Bass rules actually say if you pay your dues, whatever state you want to, you can fish whatever state you want to. And North Carolina, all the tournaments were just so far away. We live on the very western part of the state. All the tournaments are out towards the East Coast, towards Raleigh, and that's a 6-hour drive for us.
Yeah.
The farthest tournament in Georgia would be 6 hours.
Okay.
So we were fishing Georgia, started off and met some of my best friends that way, but we actually won Team of the Year during the 2017 and 18 season.
Okay, so that was a team award
A
that you
team
got.
award, me and Luke, team of the
Okay.
year. Yep.
Team of the year. Now, how did you learn through your? I mean, you're still in high school, so
Yeah.
let's say middle school.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and him, you're talking about learning together. Who do you think outside of him and yourself teaching it, who was your biggest influence as far as actually, here's a technique, this is what you kids need to do, rod selection, stuff like that?
Okay. His name is Hayes Ledford.
Hayes Ledford.
Hayes Ledford is he's 80 years old right now. Still fishes these days. I still fish nearly every week with him. One of the best fishermen I know. And he's fished tournaments all over the place. Used to fish the Jerry Ryan tournaments back in the day. And Hayes, honestly, is one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. And he's been a mentor to me in more ways than just fishing, you know. It's more important things in life. You know, he showed me different things. And Hayes has been someone that I've always looked up to. And, you know, 12-year-old kid fishing tournaments with a 75-year-old man, you know.
Right.
And we were our team duo, and we'd fish the local tournaments, and he really showed me the ropes of getting started fishing Lake Chatuge. And before I branched out to all these other lakes, and he gave me his little piece of advice, and I built off that. And, you know, and now, you know, he still shows me new things every day. The person I was telling, I was talking about a clothespin on my Demiki rig, fishing a clothespin on it. He's the one that told me about that, and I would have never dreamed anything like that. But some of the most off-the-wall techniques, you know, Hayes has showed me, and they've helped me out. But it's more than fishing with me and him. You know, it's a relationship, and he's just such a wonderful person, and I owe a lot to him for kickstarting my fishing career and really getting me into it.
Absolutely. Now, two things I take from that. First of all, do you realize how blessed you are to have a mentor?
Absolutely.
To have somebody that turns around and pours into you.
Absolutely.
And I hope as you grow older, you pay that back. You know, there'll be a little kid. And the second thing I take out of that is, and this is more for the listeners, not you. If you're listening to this and you're an adult and a kid asks you to go fishing, take a second, because you do not know what that is going to lead to.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine that, you know, and maybe he saw something in you.
Yeah.
But the first time you come up and fished with him, he probably had no idea what you would become, you know, or what it would lead to. Or maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he saw something in you.
I don't know. There ain't no telling, but I know he still pours it into me to this day, all of his knowledge. And I can talk to him, and we'll be on the phone for an hour and a half and 2 hours. Calls me after every tournament, asking me how I've done. And I mean, we always have just took the steps together to follow my ultimate dream of being a professional angler, and he's right there along with me the whole way, and I want him to be a part of it for every step, because I owe a lot to him.
You're blessed. That's an absolute blessing. One thing that I wanted to touch on is, now we're still in high school with you currently. You spoke earlier this year at the Geminar.
Yes.
And for those of you that do not know what the Geminar is, Jim Mathley is Jimbo on Lanier. He had a couple of other guides, and he puts on this seminar. And one of the things that he likes to do is get these people up, and they give little sessions, and you gave one of them as a 17-year-old kid. Okay, so where did you learn the art of public speaking, or is it just natural with you?
Well, I've always been able to talk, I would say. I mean, public speaking is something, you know, crowds never really have bothered me that much. I've always loved, I don't want to say being the center of attention by any means, but you know what I'm saying. I always have loved to talk to people, and I've never really been shy. So I guess you could say it was natural, and I've learned, you know, some public speaking techniques. I actually am in a public speaking class right now, for some of my pre-college classes, and that helps along the way. But I've just now started taking it. But I've always loved getting up and speaking in church. You know, there ain't nothing like giving a testimony. You know that for sure.
Amen. Yeah.
But and stuff like that, I've always loved talking to people.
Was that your first time ever being in front of a crowd at the Geminar as far as to teach?
Yes, it was.
Now, how did that feel the first time you walked up on that stage? Was you a little nervous?
I wasn't really nervous as much as it was, you know, because I'm just talking about what I love.
Right.
And I'm talking about it to a bunch of people that are there eager to learn. But getting up there, the way it felt was I was very humbled and very, I felt very honored to be able to speak. You know, that people were looking to me to shed some knowledge to them, and that was very humbling to me. And I just can't help but look back and, thank the Lord for all he's done for me and give me the opportunity to go out and pursue my dream and, able to accumulate this knowledge. There's a lot of people that would kill to be fishing on a Saturday morning. Like,
That's true.
And I mean, you never take it for granted.
Absolutely. I remember walking in the room, or the first time I saw you walk in the room, and I think I told you, that's that Caz kid. So it is pretty cool, though, for a 17-year-old to have the I don't even know how to describe it, but the it factor. And you got the it factor to a point, so that's pretty cool.
We got lucky along the way.
Is that what it is?
Blind hog pies an acre every once in a while.
I don't want to hear about that. You're good at what you do. Now, you mentioned to me, now we all know so far that you're wanting to be a professional angler. Well, I totally get that. Now, you mentioned to me, though, you have fished some Bassmaster Opens.
Yes.
As a co-angler.
Yep.
Describe that experience.
Co-angling is by far the best thing I've ever done in my fishing career. For sure. And I've had a lot of encouragement from people to make the jump to the co-angler side. And co-angling can get a bad rap. And I've not had one negative experience from it so far. And this is my second year fishing the co-anglers. Last year I was fortunate enough I took second place in the points race on the Opens. And I drew a lot of great people.
Describe the Opens for somebody. I mean, what kind of area? Are we talking southeast or what are we talking?
I was fishing last year. I fished the Bassmaster Central Opens.
Okay.
The first tournament was on Toledo Bend Reservoir in February. Now, for any of y'all that haven't been to Toledo Bend, it's full of stumps and 180,000 acres. And that is a big body of water. It's a lot different than fishing a lake around here. You take Lake Lanier and add Lake Hartwell to it and then add another lake to it, and boom, you've got Toledo Bend.
Right.
It's massive.
It's huge.
And you can do anything from one end up to the other. But me being a co-angler, I'm forced to adapt. I'm forced to catch fish behind a guy that has paid a large entry fee to fish this tournament, and he would not be fishing this tournament if he was not confident that he could make it to the professional level.
Right.
And that can be a little overwhelming because you don't know, hey, am I going to get backboated? What's going to happen? Is he going to pin me up? It doesn't matter, guys. You have to be able to catch fish no matter what circumstance you're put in. Mm-hmm. Whether you're pinned against riprap or you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's bass out there. You have to find a way to catch those fish, and you have to be confident in what you're doing. Now, what I've taken away from the Opens the most is a confidence bait, and that confidence bait for me is a shaky head. I love throwing a shaky head so much, and it's something that's I feel like I'm going to get a bite on it on every single cast.
Right.
No matter where I put it, no matter what lake I throw it on, I feel like I'm going to get a bite. And that's something that is huge in tournament fishing and just fishing in general. You have to have confidence. That's the biggest thing. And that's what I've taken away from the Opens. Other than experience on different bodies of water, like the Mississippi River and La Crosse. This year I'm going to Lake Oneida. We've been to tidal fisheries. We've been to the swamp down there at Toledo Bend. We've been everywhere. And Grand Lake of the Cherokees, completely different fisheries. But you learn as you go, and if you ever stop learning, that's when you need to hang it up, for sure.
That's true. Now, tell me your worst experience as a co-angler. No name dropping, but just your worst experience.
It wasn't. I never have got cut off. Never. I've drawn really nice guys about every time, but a couple of them were know-it-alls. And one time, it was just an experience that really was just pretty sour. And it was the second day at Toledo Bend, and I was we sat on one point for 6 hours. And there was nothing on the graph, nothing happening, but that guy had confidence, and and
right.
if I had done it, and I was trying to talk fishing with him and stuff, and if I had done it, he had done it twice and better, one of those kind of people. But overall, nice guy, shook his hand at the end of the day, but it was one of those that left, a pretty an impression that wasn't really as fun of a day as I would have liked. I didn't learn anything that day. You know what I'm saying? I learned. I shouldn't have said that. I learned stuff, but I did not maximize my potential on the day on the water. Like, I did not take away as much as I could have. I just felt like it was kind of just he was going through the motions, and it was another day, and he wasn't really he didn't really care if he succeeded or not. And that's what makes it bad for a co-angler. You know, for any co-angler that's out there, I mean, your money's just as green as a boater's is. Mm-hmm. You know, you're gonna go out there and fish. You rig up your rods the same. You take it. I mean, you're serious. Execute on every single bite. You know, same thing as you're as a boater. And I mean, you don't really have a say in what you guys do, but you want if your boater's not putting in 100% effort and doesn't really care if y'all succeed or not, it's really hard for you to succeed as well.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he starts making moves that he normally wouldn't do, and it's really, I mean, you are at the mercy of your boater in some standpoints. You definitely are, but it's something that you can make the best of if you have the right mentality.
Now, have you ever got on a boat and the boater just look at you and he sees this 16-year-old kid coming up and just goes,
No, I never really have.
Okay.
I've been surprised. I have had some people say, "Oh, well, he's young," and you know, I'll get off the boat that day and say, "Well, you're a pretty good little fisherman, little fisherman,
Little fisherman, yeah,
yeah." But they don't mean anything by it. But that's just, you know, I mean, they are older than me.
Have you ever wore one out?
I have.
Okay. Now, how'd that make you feel?
It makes you feel pretty good.
I bet it does.
Whenever, I mean, you know that you've outfished your guy from the back of the boat, and I've had, I haven't been beat terrible. I mean, yeah, you know, I'm sure it's liable to happen, you know, but I have outfished my boater a couple times, and it does make you feel good whenever you do that, for sure.
Now, does their demeanor change as you're catching fish and they're not catching fish?
For sure.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, if you're catching fish, you know, I had this happen at Lake Chatuge last month. I was catching fish, and I caught 2 fish on back-to-back casts out of this spot. We were fishing a Kissimmee grass edge, and Kissimmee grass just looks like bank grass, except there's like 2 or 3 feet of water in front of it, and the fish like to spawn on the edge of it. Well, this guy had been catching fish in practice, and he was doing really good at it, and those fish had moved out during the tournament. Well, I caught some fish behind, you know, right there. And, you know, I mean, they can turn the boat around on you, and that's no harm, no foul. You know, that's all part of the game.
And that's what he did?
Yes. But, you know, I didn't get offended by it or nothing. I would have done the exact same thing, you know, for sure. But it's competitive, you know, from the front of the boat to the back of the boat. You know, if he starts catching fish and I'm not, what's he doing different than me? You know, boat positioning is a factor that, I mean, you're just going to have to deal with. And, but techniques, watch his hands, watch what he's doing, you know, just try to take something away from every fish catch. They'll do the same if I'm catching fish, and I'll do the same if they're catching fish to try to adapt and, you know, catch more fish out of the back of his boat, you know.
Okay, well, that's a good tip. Now, you mentioned to me that now you have plans next year to be a boater.
Yes.
Now, my question to you is, you're taking these few years as a co-angler, and now you're a boater. Will that affect how you treat your co-anglers?
For sure. I had my first co-angler this past week at Lake Chatuge, fishing the BFL, and honestly, one of the nicest guys I've met.
So you were the boater.
I was the boater this past weekend on Chatuge. The BFLs are cheaper, and I wanted to just try. I mean, I've obviously fished by myself as a boater in some tournaments up at the house, local tournaments, but this was my first big time major tournament to fish as a boater. And they're cheaper than the opens. So I wanted to do that just to kind of get my feet wet and really get the experience, get the feel for competing against a lot of some really good anglers. And I did have a phenomenal experience with my co-angler this past week. And I understand where they're coming from. Being, you know, fishing in the opens and drawing some good fishermen, you know, I know what they're thinking whenever I get out there and I catch fish or they start catching fish, you know, I know what's going through my head, you know, and I know what they're feeling, and I understand, and I don't think I could bring myself to backboat one of them for sure, you know, just because I don't think that's really right. I mean, some standpoints, I mean, you don't have a choice to, you know, but I wouldn't ever do that to one of them if I had a choice not to.
Okay, so you're saying this was your first one as a boater, though, major tournament this past week?
Yep.
On Chatuge?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the first time you have probably had to go to a lake and break it down as a boater, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So tell
Other
me
than like high school tournaments, you know, I have a boat captain, and I kind of make the moves in practice, but this is literally by myself. Nobody's helping me.
This is your first time. This is you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how that process went for you.
Okay. Well, it actually went better than I expected. Just the way I do it is I just accumulate all my knowledge from every lake and bring it into one, what I know, what these fish should be doing. Now, Kiowee is a lake that is factored by a nuclear power plant. It's got what everybody calls the hot hole, and now it's going to warm the water up a lot, especially around that area of the lake. Now, the coldest water I found was 53 or 54 degrees this time of year in January, and February, and water's not supposed to be 53, 54 degrees.
That's pretty warm.
That's warm, but that is equivalent to 40-degree water for fish on Chatuge or Lanier. That's freezing cold. So that's a barrier that you just have to cross, and to get that out of your head that, hey, this water temperature, this is really cold. This has been really cold temps. These fish are still in their winter pattern. Don't go looking for pre-spawn fish yet. And that was very much the case, and I'm really glad I got that out of my head. Kiowee is a really steep lake, so the approach that I took to it is on a steep lake. There's not a lot, you can catch fish going down the banks, but if you've never been to it before, especially in the wintertime, a good place to start looking, they're either going to be on points or they're going to be in ditches, being like gullies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I started looking in ditches, graphing around. I spent hours on my electronics each practice day just looking for fish, looking for bait. And Kiowee, I found out that if you found shad, you were finding fish, just because the bottom in that lake's very barren. Mm-hmm. This is just all the stuff that I've taken away from practice on that lake and what ultimately led to what I found out during the tournament.
Do you have a co-angler during your practices?
I did have one. It's not mandatory, but I did take a buddy with me in practice.
Okay, all right.
Just because, two lines are better than one,
yes.
And, he didn't have anybody to practice with, and I just wanted, it was a good opportunity for me and him to fish together anyways.
Okay.
So we went, and he actually helped me out a lot that day, just experimenting with different baits and stuff like that. If I can have a co-angler in practice, I will do that for sure. But I really, really like to graph around in those high percentage areas, expand out all over the lake. I actually went down the weekend before and the day before, looked in every creek on the lake, and there's not many creeks on the lake. I haven't been faced to an area where it's like a Lanier and you have like a million big long creeks yet, but Lanier's a lake that I am familiar with and would kind of know the higher percentage areas. But Kiowee, I had no clue. So I just started looking and tried to find those highest percentage areas where I found the most shad. And that ended up being as far away from possible from the ramp at the Lake Joe Cassie Dam. I was up there on some points and some ditches. And those fish were set up in that 20 to 25-foot depth zone no matter what depth you were over, whether it was 90 feet or 40 feet. They were suspended over 20 or 25.
Just found that happy place there.
They did. I guess that was just from where the water had been rising and falling, and they just liked the temperature right around there just seemed to fit them the best. That's where the shad was hanging out the most. And I would utilize my graph and find out that depth, and I would cast a little swim bait around, an eco rig. I would cast that around to catch those fish, and those were the baits that I found to work really good for me. But Kiowee has a lot of smaller fish in it, so catching a 2-pounder in practice, that would be a huge deal. I would drop a waypoint on that spot and come back and fish it. Every ditch that I seen shad in or caught a fish in, I tried to hit it during the tournament because there wasn't many areas with bait in it, and I wanted to maximize my day on the water. Given a long day, I was doing it 4:45. So I hit a bunch of waypoints on tournament day.
Okay, how'd you end up doing?
I ended up placing 29th out of 187, and I had 10 pounds and 1 ounce with 5 fish. And I did cut a check, so I was happy with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was happy with it. My first tournament ever as a boater, and just kind of getting used to things. And if I would have had to do it over again, I would have stayed in that first area longer. But that's what it's all about. You take something away from each tournament. You can look back, and some tournaments you can look back on and be like, man, I did everything perfect, and those are the good ones. But a lot of tournaments, you do learn stuff. You live and you learn. You make a good decision here, a bad decision there, and you make a lot of decisions in the day, but you only got to make 5 good ones.
That's true. Absolutely.
And that's what you look back and you realize what you would have done different, and it'll help you the next time you go to the lake.
That's awesome. Now, I have laid this foundation. I've let, just so somebody's listening and they're like, okay, this kid knows what he's talking about. Okay, so we've laid this foundation, and you said your home lake is Chatuge.
Yep.
Okay. That's probably about the most northern lake in Georgia.
It is,
okay,
for sure.
And it's a little different. And these guys that listen to us in South Georgia, I'm sure there's nothing like it down there. It kind of probably relates to Lanier a little bit.
It does.
Let's break down Chatuge.
Okay.
Okay. How big is it?
It's 7,000 acres.
Okay.
162 miles of shoreline. So there's a lot of creeks, lots of pockets in Chatuge, and lots of little pockets that really add up that shoreline.
Do they lower it like they do Notley or?
They do. They drop it down a lot. There's about a 15-foot swing from every summer to winter, and the lake right now is just a couple feet below full pool with all the rain that we've been having, and it muddies up quick. One thing to know about Chatuge is real important if you're going to take a trip up there soon. Right now it's February 12th, and it's muddy right now. But this lake does clear up fast because we have a lot of outflow. The Hiwassee River runs into it, and Shooting Creek are the main flows of the lake. And the dam is actually in the middle of the lake. It's centralized. It's not on the south end or the north end. It's centralized in the middle of the lake.
Okay, that's different.
And it's a hydroelectric dam, so they pump water over the spillway and all that stuff. So there's a lot of places where the water can flow out and clear up, but it is a clear water, spotted bass fishery. There is largemouth in it. There used to be a bunch of smallmouth in it before they introduced spotted bass.
And the spot's just warm out.
They just outcompeted them for food for the most part, and the bottom on Chatuge got kind of grassy. It got mossy, and those smallmouth really need hard rock bottom to spawn on, and there's not near as much of it as there used to be. Spotted bass, they can spawn on clay, and they can spawn in that. If it has moss over it, they can spawn on it as long as it has a hard system. But smallmouth really like that hard rocky bottom, and we just don't have a whole lot of that anymore.
Now, is it a deep lake?
Not really. The maximum depth is 112 feet, but average, we don't have a whole lot of 60 and 70 foot water where you can fish in ditches and stuff like that. Average depth, I would say, is about 25 to 30 feet. That would be about average. In the middle of a pocket, that's about average. But the bank shoreline, there's not a whole lot of it that's really a straight drop off. It has a pretty steady incline to it, and it's not a real steep lake at all.
Okay, what kind of pressure does it get?
It gets a lot of pressure. For anyone that knows, we had the Bassmaster Angler of the Year championship up there last year, and those guys brought a lot of attention to the lake, being that they were there in prime time. They were there in September. Fish were munching topwaters, and it got a lot of TV publicity off that. And we also had the college national championship for Bassmaster 2 years in a row. So that has brought a lot of attention to the lake, and there's been some really cool fish catches over the years that have been caught on camera. Tom Frank won the 2013 national championship up there, and if anybody hasn't watched that video, they need to go watch it. He catches a 5-pounder on a rat, El Raton. That's a swim bait from California, and a lot of people they've went the craze. Spro started making the BBZ1 rat after that tournament, and that's something that it's crazy to think that big ideas have inspired off of our little lake, but it really has. It's awesome fish catches, that spark ideas like that, and they really have. This lake does get a lot of pressure, especially in the summertime.
Okay, does it have a lot of docks?
It does. It has quite a few docks. It's pretty developed on the shoreline. There is some pretty rural spots, but most 90% of the lake has docks on it.
Okay, so let's do this now. Right now it's February here in Georgia, and granted it has been rainy, but let's take a typical year.
Okay.
Because this year is just different. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's so much rain. But a typical year from January to March.
Yeah.
And we're targeting spotted bass because that's pretty much what that's what's on for. Okay. So from January to March, what techniques are best on Chatuge for spots?
Spotted bass, January, whenever it's cold and it's typical year, we've got clear water, we've got normal water levels. It usually doesn't really matter on the water levels in January as much as it does on up into the pre-spawn. But right now, this past month, water levels didn't seem to make a difference. Those fish stayed in the ditches. Spotted bass in the wintertime on any herring lake like to get in the ditches. They like to get in that 40 to 60 foot of water, and they'll hang around in that depth zone, whether they're on the bottom or suspended up, depends on the air temperature and the water fluctuation. They'll suspend or they'll stick on the bottom. Wherever the shad is, that's where they like to be. Spotted bass are known to be a nomadic fish. So they'll travel around after bait fish, and they'll follow them wherever they go. And that's just kind of the deal. That messes up with a lot of people whenever they come to a herring lake like Lanier and Chatuge. Fish can move on a dime. A lot of guys will catch a big bag one day and zero the next in a 2-day tournament. It's not uncommon. But going into February and March is the time that I really like to start moving shallow for a kicker fish, and I still do fish some ditches and points. Late February and March, is a time that I like to fish points for numbers. I'll fish main lake points, clay points with the Alabama rig, and the jerk bait is something that I really like to target those fish with. That just seems to catch you the most fish and the biggest fish. But a lot of the biggest spots, those 4.5, 5 pounders, are caught dirt shallow in late February and March.
Okay.
I like on a shallow crankbait and stuff like that. That's what the biggest spots are caught on this time of year. Those big spots like to get dirt shallow for some reason. I don't know, but they really do.
Okay, so now we're talking late March into May, June. We're talking about the spawn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so describe that part of Chatuge.
Okay, so these largemouth go on beds first. Pretty typical largemouth spawn. They'll go on the beds whenever it's 61, 62 degrees. They're going to start moving up whenever we have a full or new moon. They're going to move up. That's when the biggest waves are going to move up. I find that the biggest bass move up first. They're in the first wave, and the smaller fish, they get smaller and smaller as they go. The reason for that is those biggest females don't really like to be up there whenever it gets warmer and all the bluegill and stuff starts to move shallow and starts competing for the eggs. Those big ones like to get up there, get it done quick, and move back out to their deeper water haunts.
Okay.
But after the largemouth spawn, it's pretty opposite from most of the lakes, but Chatuge spots spawn after the largemouth do.
After the largemouth.
The prime month for spawning spots, late April's when it starts, but all the way through the month of May, fishing can get unreal. That's when the biggest spots are caught on our lake is in May.
And that's a lot different than most lakes.
It's a lot different. The reason for it, I believe, is a highland reservoir. It's crazy how much pressure can change these fish and how much elevation can. And, it definitely changes the way the fish act.
Do you know of another lake that they do that? Or
I don't. I really don't.
It's just something you have found that Chatuge does.
Yep. You'll catch fish with bloody tails all the way through June.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, so how are you targeting these fish?
Okay, so spotted bass, my main thing, they'll spawn on a pea gravel or clay bottom. A mix is fine too. I like to fish for them with a Kitech swim bait. Spotted bass are a lot different than largemouth. If you get a bait within 5 feet of one's bed, he's going to come over there and eat it. A lot of guys like Carolina rigs and stuff like that, but if I don't have to go slow for them, I don't want to.
Okay.
So I like throwing a light jig head, like a 3/16 ounce Kitech, with a spot sticker swim bait. Kitech's good, but I like the spot sticker version of it, like a 3.3 or 3.8 size. They make a color called blueback herring. It just drives me nuts.
Okay.
But I'll cast it out, make a real long cast, 10, 12-pound line, and slow roll it on the bottom. And I mentioned before, Chatuge has a lot of that moss. And you can actually trigger a strike by getting it around some of those spawning areas. And if you get in that moss, pop it free. And it'll just trigger a strike. Because a lot of times you pop it out of that moss, they'll crush it as soon as it comes free of that moss.
Like a reaction strike?
Oh, it is.
Kinda?
It's just like ripping a rattle trap or a chatterbait through grass down south. Those guys can relate it exactly. That's the same thing I'm talking about, except you're doing it with that moss and a Kitech.
Okay.
But those spotted bass act the same way, and they'll lash out and eat that thing.
Okay, now let's get into the heat of summer.
Okay.
So now I imagine the lake is at full pool.
It is at full pool. There's ways to target largemouth and spotted bass.
Okay.
I don't mess with the largemouth a whole lot. I'm more of I'm a spotted bass guy. That's what I focus on, especially on my guide trips. I focus on the spotted bass just because that's what the lake's known for. Tournaments, sometimes they're won from guys with a kicker largemouth, but most of the time, a good limit of 3-pound spots is hard to beat any month in the summer. I focus on them with topwater, spy baits. Same thing as Lanier. Over the brush piles, those fish are going to go insane. The video that y'all have with Jimbo, he explains it perfectly, where those fish, wolf packs of spotted bass will come up, and really it is an unbelievable way to get somebody into fishing. Because, I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before, where those fish are literally fighting for a bait that's in another one's mouth, and they're just absolutely going crazy. If you get a little wind, you can throw a topwater or like a Sabile over those brush piles, and they'll tear the rod out of your hand.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so
Unreal.
very similar to Lanier.
Very similar to the Lanier. The only difference in Chatuge and Lanier, the main thing, the forage is the same. Fish act the same for the most part, except for the spotted bass spawn later than the largemouth. That's just due to the Highland Reservoir. But Chatuge has a ton of clay. Lanier has a ton of rock. Lanier has those big rocky points and stuff. Chatuge doesn't have that. Chatuge's all clay for the most part.
Okay. Now, going into the fall, though, is it still similar to Lanier? Because I know a lot of guys on Lanier like to throw that top water.
Oh, yeah.
Keep on going for a
We'll
while.
stretch top water out all the way through the middle of October.
Okay.
Now, after that, I like transition to the jerk bait and the spinner bait. a deep diving crankbait on some of those brush piles. But fish will hang out around brush piles all the way until they have to drop off into the main river channel for the wintertime. But I target those fish a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's pretty cool about this is basically we just took Chatuge in a year, kind of what you did. Now, 17 years old, and you're a fishing guide.
Yeah.
Now, is this something you just started doing?
I did. I started it last summer. Me and my dad helped me a lot starting it out. The thing I wanted to do was be able to make money, which is not the ultimate goal. I'm 17. I don't need to make a living for myself, but I don't want to be doing something that I love, and I felt that it was going to help me become a better fisherman, as well as, I get to share my passion with other people.
How's business?
It's pretty good, especially in the summertime. It's kind of, a lot of people don't want to come out in the wintertime. I do have some trips, every once in a while I'll get some trips whenever it's colder weather, but summertime business is really good. People want to come out and experience that topwater bite.
And do you expect to keep on doing this through your college?
Yeah, I do. I have several people like Luke. He helps me out a lot. If there's a trip I can't run, he helps me run it.
Okay.
And so we kind of make it a team effort, and I have people that help me whenever I have a tournament going on or something like that, because I do travel nearly every weekend.
Okay, so we're gonna go to college. We're gonna continue our fishing guide service.
Yep.
And we're gonna try to be a professional angler. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
So tell everybody what steps you're taking now, or what path you're going in pursuing this.
Okay. So I started out high school fishing. That's one of the best ways to get your foot in the door with some people and prove yourself in tournaments. You start competing against people of your own skill level for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, that's great. I wanted to start competing at a higher level and start seeing what those higher level tournaments were like. I want to go fish the Bassmaster Elite Series. That's something that I've dreamed of doing. And that's one thing that I want to fish the Opens, because the Opens is what qualifies you to fish the Elite Series. This year they've done the Opens format a little bit different. There's 12 ways to make it to the Elite Series. They have two divisions of the Opens. They have a Central and they have an Eastern. I'm fishing the Easterns this year because the Centrals were all way, like last year we had one in Smith Lake, and it balanced out. Mm-hmm. But this year the Easterns are way closer. But they take the top 4 in the points from the Easterns, the top 4 in the Centrals, and the top 4 from the people who fish both trails. So there's actually 12 open slots to be able to make it professional. After I've done co-angler, this will be my second year. Once this year finishes up, I want to make the jump to the boater side and try to qualify for the Elite Series. But college fishing doesn't really have anything to do with making it to the Elite Series or going professional. It's a great learning curve, but the way I see college fishing, it's great for camaraderie. It's the same way as high school fishing, but one guy makes it to the Classic every year. After he makes it to the Classic, he's got to qualify for it again.
Yeah.
He's fishing the Opens. But the Opens is how you make it to the top level of the sport from what I see. Now, I'm not saying college fishing's bad in any way. I hope people don't take it that way, but that's just, I want to maximize my time on the water to accomplish my ultimate goal, and that's why I'm focusing on the Opens.
Okay, so how many of these Opens will you fish this year?
4.
4.
Yep, one's already done.
Okay, and where are the next 3?
The next one is on Cherokee Lake, May 7th through the 9th, and I don't know the dates on the other 2, but one's on Oneida Lake in Syracuse, New York in August, and the last one is on Lake Hartwell in South Carolina in September.
Okay, so you got, I figure you probably fished Hartwell a time or 2?
Oh, yeah, several times.
Okay, so Hartwell. How about these other lakes?
I've never been to Oneida, and Cherokee's only 2 hours from the house, so I will be making a trip up there this spring.
Be making a trip up there.
Yeah.
Okay, now, real quick, before I let you get out of here, sponsorships already? Are you pursuing them, or can you?
I'm pursuing them. There's not a lot of opportunities for high school anglers as far as big time sponsorships go, just because high school anglers, they don't really have a huge platform to be big in the industry yet. I do have some companies that I do work with along the side, Shimano, G. Loomis. I have some friends that work with them, and they've helped me out along the ways. They've been there, to help me on my journey. And Spot Sticker Baits is a local company around Lake Lanier, and they make some of the best baits I've ever used. It's a product that I can get behind, and they've been really supportive of me.
Now, when we make this trip to New York, who's taking you? Is that something you're going to make?
Oh, no. My dad travels with me on all these things. Right. He loves it as much as I do, but he doesn't get to fish near as much as he used to. Of course, he says he's always hauling my butt around.
Well, I understand that.
But it's a good thing, and I'm really fortunate to have someone that my mom and dad have been behind me full force since the day started. They always tell me they're my biggest fans and they want to see me do good. So they travel around to each one of them with me. And my mom, she's an RN nurse, so she's always working. And my dad is too, but he is more, and he's more knowledgeable about the fishing side of things. So he comes with me to most of these tournaments, and he just eats it up the same way as I do.
That's awesome. Now, I want to give out, I meant to do this at the beginning, and I forgot. I'm old. You'll have to forgive me. So I want to give out your social media. Okay. You know, the sites that you gave me so that people can follow you. And we'll do your personal ones first.
Yeah.
So it's on Instagram, it's at Caz Anderson 02.
Yep.
And then on Facebook, it's just at Caz Anderson.
Yep.
Okay, it's like that. Now, for your guide service, it's Fish Chatuge Guide Service on Facebook.
Yep. And
I'm an old country boy, so this is going to be kind of hard for me. On your Instagram for your
guide service,
it's at fish_Chatuge_guides.
Yep.
Did I say that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Right on.
Right on. Okay, listen, I'm old. And, you know, all these underscores and hashtags and stuff like that.
Yep.
They didn't have them when I was your age and all like that. So how about a phone number, though, for your guide service if somebody wants to get in touch with you to go fish on Chatuge?
Okay, the way you can reach me, my phone number is 828-644-4392. That's the way you guys can reach me. Call me anytime, and I will be happy to take all y'all fishing.
That's awesome. I can tell you what people don't know about this podcast is we've already recorded a few mini casts that we like to put out with you.
Yeah.
And guys, honestly, I can say that we've had a lot of older guys in here. You're the youngest we've had, but I don't know that I've had anybody sit across from me that was as knowledgeable. You're very knowledgeable, but as good as presenting the information as you are too. For a 17-year-old kid, the fishing aside, it's impressive the way you carry yourself and the way that you can speak.
Well, I appreciate that a lot, and I just thank the Lord for being able to do all this stuff. It's who I give all my credit to for sure. And
you're a smart man right there.
Well,
that's smart.
Yeah, but y'all need to keep watching Fish North Georgia YouTube channel. I mean, I watch them all the time. I turn my sleep timer on every night, and I turn it on some podcasts and just sit there and soak up the knowledge.
So what you're saying is I bore you to death and I put you to sleep right there.
Huh? Oh yeah, no, it's just your angelic voice.
Is that that's what all it is?
Yeah.
I'm gonna love following you. And I'm glad we established this relationship with you while you're young, so that when you're holding up that big trophy one day, you know, you'll remember us little guys back here. Now, kid, you got a great future, and I'm serious. I'm looking forward to watching you. You gonna be at the Gemini next year?
Oh, you bet.
I'm sure you will. So, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you guys so much. Thank y'all for watching, and stay tuned for more videos from these guys.
Listen at you. That's perfect. Thanks, man. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fish North Georgia podcast. If y'all have any topics or guests you'd like to see in the future, leave it in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, click that bell so that you'll be notified of any future videos. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Fish North Georgia. And we look forward to seeing you soon.